So, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful beings, and everybody still pretending to be normal, welcome to the grand finale of the Being You Changing the World book club. Now, this was something that was started by a bunch of Indian facilitators, which just spread. It became loud, and thank you so much, Dr. Dain. This is our concluding call, and it's really gracious of you to come and say yes to this and join this party. This book has been more than so much more than a book. It's been a wake up call, it's been a permission slip, and it's saved the lives of so many, including mine. Like, not to make it heavy right at the beginning, but at the outset, gratitude from everybody that's watching, listening from around the world for having said yes to this and written this book and invited us to this. How's it going?
Oh, wow. Amazing. Could you imagine? Like, I wrote this book from my heart, really. I mean, it was taken from a transcript of classes and put together with magic by Katerina Valentin, who I've worked with for many years. And, like, I don't know what people think about authors. Like, if you think of J.K. Rowling, do you think she might in her world be really surprised that this thing that she created as a labor of love has had this impact in the world? And for me, it's like that. It's like, wow, is this really happening? And also, how did I get so lucky? Because the book for me is really about speaking to what is within each of us that we haven't yet been given permission to be. And to see that people are getting that. They're getting set free without trying to make it significant, because freedom is what we should have had in the first place anyway, and actually are. But it's like getting to that space where the wrongness goes away and the possibilities start to emerge. And to see people receiving it so beautifully, for me, it just brings tears to my eyes. It's just such an amazing gift, because that's why I wrote it, but I didn't know it would happen, you know? Because who knows what people are going to get from something you put out there. So this just makes me happy to a degree I can't even tell you.
Absolutely. And for I mean, if there's somebody who's listening to you for the first time, which would be a miracle by itself, but like somebody who is seeing you and like watching this or has maybe been introduced to this book for the first time, if there's one thing that you have to say to them about what being you is, what do you have to say?
It's a space of living beyond needing to go into judgment of you or anyone else for anyone or for any reason whatsoever. But also, it's that space where you start to realize that the dreams that you always had, the dreams that you've had since the time you were a kid, actually are possible to create. And it never shows up the way you think it will. So we, and the other thing is that we've grown up in a world in which people tell you this is real and this is all that exists, and this is real and this is all that exists, and this is real and this is all that exists. And we did our best to buy it. And if you feel really unsuccessful at this reality, it might be because you have the capacity to create a different reality, something that lives side by side this one, or maybe above it, or something, but that is uniquely yours. And that is a gift that you bring to the world. And it is a gift that you bring to the world when you follow that unique voice within.
And you've been facilitating this work or like have written this book, I think, what, 15, 16 years ago-ish, and you travel the world, meet so many people. Why is it that people still find so hard to stop judging themselves and actually, like, why is it so hard for people to be?
Well, a great question. Here's the weird part is we've been entrained from the moment we're born or conceived, depending on how you want to look at it. We've been entrained to believe in judgment. We've been entrained that there are good choices and bad choices, right choices and wrong choices. We've even been entrained to such a degree that the things that go through our head, we judge. The things we don't even act on or do, we judge those. And it's basically the training that you got for how to live in in a reality in which energy and space are linked with matter and time, which they were never meant to be, but somehow here we are. And so and the other why to this is it's the humanoids of the world, the seekers, the people that desire a different possibility, the people for whom they can't just do the same thing every day and retire and die. The people that know there should be something different, they seem to be most affected by this idea that they're somehow wrong because judgment isn't actually how they function. It's something you have to learn. When you have to learn to be something that you are not as a being, it has a lot of persistence and a lot more intensity in your world. And as a way of sort of illustrating this, it's like you see little kids. Are they judging themselves? No. Are they judging anyone or anything else? No. And then sometime around maybe 7 or 8 years old, there's some event that occurs where they make judgment real. And from that point forward, they're trying to figure out how to live. And it's usually from a friend or somebody they care about, somebody saying something mean to them, and it finally sinks in, whereas before it meant nothing. And it's from that moment where we make judgment meaningful that we start living our lives around it. Because for us, the seekers of the world, us weirdos, and if you read the book, you find out the original meaning of weird was of spirit, fate, or destiny. But for us weirdos, we don't understand it, and yet we've just bought into it. And now we're in a world in which we're trying to hold that in place as though it's a reality because everybody seems to be choosing it. We don't understand it. And once again, when you don't understand something, you put a lot of energy on trying to figure it out. And so you're carrying this forward while simultaneously knowing, I don't know, I should be Italian, my hands are, you get the idea. You're carrying that forward while simultaneously knowing something different is possible. And it creates this cognitive dissonance between what you know should be and what you see showing up in so many people's lives. And that cognitive dissonance where a lot of people function because you can't cognitively get how those two realities can coexist. The reality of your being and other people's beings, and the reality what they're trying to make real and true for them that they learn from their family, that they learn from society and everybody else. And so here we are, rather confused because cognitive dissonance creates confusion. And then we find ourselves going back and forth from one side to the other. The side where we have a sense of possibilities and miraculousness, which is what you get when you're being you. And then the other side where we're trying to judge everything and get it right. And maybe we miss something if we're not doing the latest fad to try to get the positive judgment from people. And so here we are. But the whole thing about the Being You book and the Being You class is it's about unlocking that in a meaningful way. Not just the thought of it, but the experience of it, the experience of being different. And one of the things I'm so grateful for about the book is as you read through the book, you have the experience of being different. You have all kinds of little invitations along the way, and they each do their own thing. They each open up a different possibility. And after a while, you start to go, wow, okay, maybe, huh, this actually seems rather true. Um, and it's an interesting thing because the whole thing that the Being You Changing the World book and the class do is they present to you what's true about you in a way that you haven't imagined before. Like, but not in a way that's like, this is true. Now take this into your judgment system. It's like, it's like, here's something that's true for you beyond a judgment system. Here's something that just is. And it starts to seep into your world where you start to go, oh, and you start to look through different eyes. And the whole other thing about this is the eyes you start to look through are yours. It's not about looking through my eyes to get somewhere different. It's about unclouding your own vision and your own awareness of what's possible.
That's so cool. And like so many different places. But you know, I totally agree with you when you say that this book kind of also opens up this. It's like this. I feel like this book is alive, for the lack of better words. There are
Mm.
some books that I know it has like this energy of its own, like it's got this whole life of its own, and the moment you come in contact with it, it's kind of facilitating you into something. It's this, and then also The Place by this very special author, Gary. Like these two books, I know that they have a life of its own. Can you talk to a very urban urbanly conditioned mind what energy is, and how a book like this can contribute to them if they said yes to this?
Great question. What is energy? Well, it's like, for example, have you ever known not to do something and you did it anyway and it turned out just as poorly as you knew it would? Or have you ever gotten a sense to do something and everybody else was like, no, and you chose to do it anyway and it turned out just as great as you knew it would? Well, what you're aware of is the energetics, if you will, of what's presenting itself. Another example of energy, quote unquote, because energy gets a bit of a bad rap, when we're talking about these things, because it's like, I want something practical and pragmatic. And the funny part to me is recognizing there is this thing called energy that everything has, by the way, is the most pragmatic thing there is. And just acknowledging what it shows you can give you a different way of navigating. When I think about doing this, like if you put yourself in that situation of knowing not to do something and you're going to do it anyway, and it turned out really poorly, and if you put yourself in that situation right before that, and instead of just doing it, you asked a question, what will my life be like if I choose this? Will it go like this and get lighter? Or will it go like this and get heavier, more contracted, and have more problems and more judgments? And you could realize that once again, you knew not to do it. Why would you do it then? Well, because we don't live in a world in which it's about recognizing the energy that something presents and your awareness of that and your connection to that. We live in a world that says you need to make a checklist, and if the positives outweigh the negatives, then do it. And so when we talk about energy, it's our innate awareness. One of the elements of it is it's our innate awareness that every choice has an outcome and that every choice creates something. And it's our innate ability to, before even choosing, perceive how this choice will interact with our world to create an impact or create an effect. And so, but contrast that with the world that we've grown up in, which tries to take us away, or has, I don't know if it tries to, but actually I kind of do, but let's say it has the effect of taking us away from our energetic awareness. So, for example, for many years while I was growing up, it was like, we found this thing called cholesterol. Eliminate cholesterol. Cholesterol will give you a heart attack. Don't eat it, especially these cholesterols. Cholesterols are the worst thing you can have. Hey, guess what? It turns out if you don't have cholesterol, you also have no hormones and die. Nice to meet you. Have a nice day. Okay. But in that time of that, if you look at it, right, this is many years ago. And here's the other thing is we get more awareness as we look into what's actually going on. But we've been taught that we should go with the prevailing judgment at the time. So what happens, we get, oh my God, I'm going to eliminate cholesterol because it's giving me heart disease and whatever. And then you find all these other things that are created. And then with further research, it's like, oh, actually, it's not as much about the cholesterol. I'm so sorry that I made you all eat boring food for so long, but guess what? It doesn't kill you. It doesn't give you the heart disease. It's something totally different. In fact, there's all kinds of things that add to it, and there's some really good stuff. And if you just go like a meat, high-fat diet, some of you will be healthy. Like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But that's the thing where somebody might be, and it sounds like such a silly example, okay? But I know people who in that cholesterol time were like, my body wants it, and they would eat it. And, they would live well into their 90s and not have all the problems that everybody else had, but they were willing to follow their own knowing. And did they do it from resistance? Yeah, a lot of times they were like, fuck you, people, don't tell me what to eat. Oh, did I freeze? That is the best freezing. Oh my God, that's the best freezing. It's not even freezing. Is that me in slow-mo?
I'm not
Oh
sure. Is it
my God, that's
is it
so
me that I think you're frozen.
good.
Who's frozen?
I don't know. Am I? Because on my screen, I look like I'm frozen. Am I frozen?
Well, we can hear you.
Well,
We
I
can hear
know,
you.
but if you can see me. Oh, that was so good. Okay, somehow I guess I'm back and moving again, which is cool. Okay, but that's the thing about being conditioned to live from judgment. And then there's also people who thrive on, let's say, cholesterol, for example, and their bodies, and if they would listen to their bodies, they would do it even though everybody else says don't do this. And it's a weird thing to recognize that there's this energetic component to everything that we can use to help guide our lives. And that's one of the things the book introduces you to. It's also one of the things that you cannot mistake after a Being You Changing the World class is basically everything's talking to me, but not in words. It's saying, hey, if you choose this, your body will feel lighter. Like if I choose this, my body will feel lighter. If I choose this, it'll feel heavier. And it's such a weird thing that we can use that to navigate our lives and navigate our choices to create what we would really like. Whereas the world of judgment that we've been using doesn't actually work. And another really simple example of energy, do you have somebody that you just love being around and every time you give them a hug, your world feels so much better? And then do you have somebody who you don't like being around and every time you give them a hug, it's like hugging a rock on legs? Well, what's the difference? They got two different energetic makeups, you know? And I suggest don't hug people that are rocks. I mean, you can, but if you do hug them, don't make it significant. Just realize they've got their own thing going on and it's okay. Because really, everything is talking to us all the time, which is interesting, but almost none of it is talking in words. And usually the things that talk in words are lying. Okay, that might be a bit of an overstatement. But you realize that there are certain people, think about somebody you like being around. It's often also because they're energetically congruent with what they're saying. Most people just talk like they're plugging in a tape and responding to your tape, and then you say something and then they respond with another tape. And that's not very much fun. And guess what, though? What if they're not wrong? And what if you're not wrong? What if that's just how they've learned to function? And what if it's okay?
Yes. And wow. So there's the book and then there's the class where I mean there's so much that happens in a class, but I'd really like to hear from you. I don't know if what is it that what is possible in a class with you?
How many miracles are you willing to have? See, the beauty of it is I have tried to explain, I've tried to explain for years. And it's something you have to experience. But the Being You Changing the World book, if you've gone through it, it's one of the ways of beginning to have that experience. Because somebody can tell you, like for example, and you know this, and if you've read the book and if you've heard me talk, you probably know this about me too. But if you don't, 26 years ago, I literally was at a place where I was going to take my own life because I was tired of struggling. This is what actually got me to Access, so I'm really grateful. But it was like I've been doing all the spiritual stuff and all the metaphysical stuff and the psychological stuff and the money making stuff and the happiness making stuff and the spiritual stuff and the like. I was doing the stuff, I was doing the work, but I would go to a weekend workshop and feel like I got happy. And by Wednesday of the following week, it felt like everything went away and the universe caved in on my head again. Even after those times where I'm like, this time I really found the answer, you know, And I would think that every time. I'm cute, but not so bright necessarily. And so what happened was I'd gone to a weekend workshop, thought I finally found the answer. Literally Wednesday of the following week, it felt like everything fell apart again. Why? Because I got an experience of something, but I didn't have any tools to back it up in the trenches of life. And I didn't have an experience of living it in my life. I had an experience of living it in the little box of the classroom or the workshop. And so I said, Universe, I'm out of here. And that's when I saw an ad for Access Consciousness, literally a week later, and it went, Access all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And my response was, fuck you. My life is pain, suffering, and glory. Go away. I am tired of this crap. Anyway, I saw it the following week. I called, I had a session of Access Consciousness bars, and I literally had an experience of my life changing. I'm not saying everybody who gets bars or does access, we all experience everything differently. We all have our buttons and we all have our things we're willing to change in the moment and things we're not and whatever, it doesn't matter. And none of that is relevant to the experience of a class like this because the beauty of a class like this is even and especially those things that you're fighting to hold on to. As you look from a different perspective, become the fuel to set you and others free. And the Being You book was created from transcripts of classes that I had facilitated for years called Energetic Synthesis of Being, another energetic, quote unquote, another class I facilitate. It's all energetic and it's also verbal and everything else. Um, and the reason I wrote the book is because I wanted people to have an energetic and a personal experience of changing into more of what they truly are. The whole idea of all of this is getting more of what you truly are because what's true for you always makes you lighter. And when you get to more of what is true for you and what you truly are, there's this awareness that you're not stoppable anymore. Doesn't mean you go fight against the things that don't work. In fact, just the opposite. You make this choice for allowance where you're not judging it, you're not judging you. And that becomes the fuel for forward movement. Because when you don't do judgment, you have choice. When you don't do judgment, you have a sense of possibilities. And those possibilities are yours, they are you. And when you realize that, when you start to get that, and when you get the tools, and each class, one of the beautiful things about each class is it's it's like the most updated creative edge of every awareness that I have had and that all of us in Access have had, and where consciousness is moving, like actual consciousness, living where everything exists and nothing is judged, is our definition of consciousness. But it's that cutting edge of opening into a new world, a new reality, a new possibility for each person. And the weird part is opening into a new world, a new reality, a new possibility for each of us is unique to each of us. But in a class, you get an experience of what if? What if it were actually possible? What if I didn't have to give up on my dreams anymore? What if I didn't have to do it the way I thought I had to do it that isn't successful? What if there's a completely different way of going about everything? A way that actually works with me and puts me in alignment with the universe itself rather than continuously feeling like I'm going against it. And these are some of the things that people have reported to me, after a class, because I'm like, hey, this is amazing for me, but what did you get out of it? Because I don't care if it's amazing for me. It's like I'm doing this for what the people can receive from it. And these are just some of the things people have told me that they've gotten. And you got to realize it never shows up the way you think it will. That's part of the beauty of the universe is our thinking and our mind is, truth be told, our thinking and our mind are very ill-equipped to connect to and receive from and function successfully well, not to function successfully from an infinite universe that is infinitely gifting. And one of the other things it opens up for people in the Being You class and the book also is they start to open up their receiving. They start to be willing to receive, not just from this person and this thing and this box of good things and reject this box of bad things. And by the way, those are really big boxes. But instead, you like break open the boxes. You're like, oh, things. They're not good or bad. They're just things. Oh, and some things are being chosen by people. Fun. Some things are being chosen by animals. Like everything is just a thing that is being chosen. And you go, oh, well, if I don't have to try to only choose the good, because what happens when you try to only choose the good? What do you get? Way more bad. And if you try to avoid choosing the bad, what do you get? Way more bad. It's the energetics of how things function. When instead you go, if nothing were good and nothing were bad, in other words, if it weren't about judgment determining my choice, especially other people's judgments, what would I choose? And just in that one perspective or question, and it's not that, oh, we get it all perfectly after moment one. It's not about that, but it's like just in that one perspective, you start to realize there's a whole different way of being that's not about judgment as the source. It's not about judgment as the basis of reality. And that starts to change your perspective from am I right or am I wrong, which requires nonstop judgment of us, by the way, or is this right or is this wrong, which requires nonstop judgment of it and us, by the way, to what would I like to choose? What can I choose? What am I capable of choosing that I never imagined? And what if it's available to me now? That's more us truly being us.
I think this is the first time somebody has put in words what happens in an access consciousness class. Like it's one of those questions that we all like get asked, and then this was just I think this needs to be clipped and circulated around the world. Moving on, creating the money you've never been willing to have. Dane, this is the first ever class, like a 3 day thing you're doing. You've spoken about your journey with money quite openly. Is there a quick recap or something that you want to talk to us about what was money for you and what is money for you right now?
Oh, yeah. Money was struggle. It was something I had a love-hate relationship with. It was something that was a cause, primarily it was a cause for judgment of me. But see, I grew up around people who had the weirdest shit around money. I had my poor side of the family who was proud of being poor. They had this pride in poverty, and they would say, those rich people aren't happy. And I would look at them and go, um, I don't think they could be any less happy than you. Okay, I'm gonna give it a shot, you know? And and so they always wanted more money, but they couldn't allow themselves to have it because they had to maintain that they were their whole judgment structure was based on they want money, but they can't have it, but they're superior because of it. So they never really got honest with themselves about it. I had a side of the family that had some money, like upper middle class, and it was based on a business that my grandfather created, and then they lost it when I was a teenager. Perfect time, right as I'm getting ready to prepare for college. And, they're like, oh, sorry, promised you could go here. Guess what? You can't. You're going to have to pay for it all on your own. I was like, and, uh, And so all the weird shit about money that I grew up with, it was like cognitive dissonance squared multiplied by every number in the universe, right? It was just like ah. And then I come to Access. I've been struggling with money. It was one of the biggest struggles in my life, as I know it is for so many people. And I get it. And the only solution beyond it is finding out what's true for you and getting to receive more of what you are capable of receiving that nobody else is. Anyway, having said that, um, so I started doing some access. I got my bars run and I started using a tool. I got a tool every single week to use when the universe wanted to cave in on my head. I would use the tool, and when things started doing this and compressing, I would use the tool and they would go again. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Okay, cool. So I then met Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, and we became friends. And we were up shoveling horse shit one day, and I'm like, Gary, I need to ask you a question. And he's like, what about it? I said, money, Gary. Money has very significant money, Gary. And he was like, okay. He's like, look, he's like, there's no such thing as a money problem. There's only a problem with what you're willing to receive. And I was like, what? He's like, look, there's no such thing as a money problem. I'm like, bullshit. I got one for you. He's like, yeah, there's only a problem with what you're willing to receive. In other words, based on what we're willing to receive or not, we create money as a problem. And I was like, what? And then he said one more thing. He said, from my perspective, the purpose of money is to change people's realities. And I was like, oh, in that moment, I looked and I went, okay, I'm actually willing to have it now. And something in my world started to change. And I started being willing to open up to receiving more because I had had the point of view from my poor family that money is bad and wrong and you shouldn't have it, we're superior. And then I had the point of view from my other side of the family that if you have it, you're going to lose it, but you really need it, but you can't. Like, wow. By the way, were any of those points of view mine? No, but I bought them. And that's what I find about most people who are having money problems is a lot of that stuff is stuff that you bought while growing up that you're doing your best to try to work around. So as I started having those two perspectives, the other thing I started doing is recognizing that every judgment I have of anyone or anything, every fixed point of view I have is limiting my receiving. So if I go, I don't like that, what am I doing? If I go for, so let me give you just a couple really quick things here for people. Hello, people. Let me give you a really couple of quick things. So anytime you decide you don't like something or someone, you're limiting your receiving. Okay. And you're making the choice for that. Now, here's the weird part. You asked me about energy before. This is where the energetic snake starts to bite its tail. Because what will happen is based on an energy that somebody provokes, you go, I don't like them. Now you're keeping an energetic wall up against any energy that's like that. So you put up the wall. The thing you don't realize is in order to limit receiving of energy like that, like, oh, they're this kind of person, or they don't like me, so I don't like them, or they judge me, or they're whatever, you put up an energetic wall, but that wall tries to keep out everything, including money. And so we tend to not like people who judge us as though, but what we don't realize is if we can look and have allowance that people are living in a world of judgment all the time, we're just a tiny part of it, then could we allow ourselves to be willing to go, okay, here's this person. I've decided I don't like them. I'm going to use some of my tools. I'm going to go pod and pock all of that. Who does that belong to? Are they projecting so people don't like them, so nobody gets close to them, so they can stay protected? And what if I got over my judgment of this person and this energy? What if I could just go, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, they have this point of view. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view, that they have this point of view, and that I do. And I'm no longer going to live from a reality of separation based on judgment into good energy, bad energy, right and wrong. Instead, I'm going to live. And I'm going to live in a way that allows me to not reject anything or anyone. And the weird part is we're told that if you don't judge, you don't have choice. No, when you judge, you're locked into the choice that your judgment dictates by billions of other people for thousands upon thousands of years. When you don't judge is when you truly have choice. When you do judge, you're locked into the choices that have been pre-baked into reality by billions of people over thousands or more years. And so we all know what it's like to have this person that we reject, we don't want them into our world. What you got to realize is for every judgment and point of view, for every energy you're not willing to receive, you lose, you make, for every judgment you're willing to receive, you make $10,000 more that year. And what is receiving? Receiving is, oh, there's this energy. Okay, it can come on through. I'm not going to try to fight it. Receiving is somebody goes, you're a jerk. And you go, oh, okay. Or, wow, you have no idea. You should have seen me yesterday. You think I'm a jerk today? Oh, girl, you have no clue. Oh, it is so cutie pie thinking I'm a jerk. You're not putting up walls or barriers. Or you might ask a question like, really, what makes you say that? Whatever. You're just not resisting it. Resisting it is, I'm not a jerk, you're a jerk, where you try to put up a wall and don't let it in, as though, remember, our point of view creates our reality, as though we have bought the lie that judgment can actually hurt us. Why would you keep it out if you didn't think it could hurt you? But if your point of view is that something as tiny and insignificant as judgment can hurt you, how much are you trying to avoid the world from impacting you? For example, especially in a country with India, with as many people are there, there's all kinds of energies flying in and around all the time. But what if you could walk through any city or any place in India and just have space? And if it sounds impossible when I say that, I do understand. But guess what? That and billions of other things are possible. So back to our how does this affect money? Well, you could see that if you were, look at the supercomputer in our heads that is continuously perceiving all of this stuff, aware of it, which that's another thing most people don't know that Access talks about, and most people don't even know, is you're perceiving all these things. And in the moment of perceiving all of them, in each moment, you're trying to figure out, keep out this, keep in this, keep out this, keep out this, keep in this, keep in. In a country of over 1 billion people, are you frigging kidding me? There is no supercomputer big enough, okay? There's no supercomputer big enough to work out all those equations moment after moment after moment after moment. So what do? We're like, well, let me go on autopilot then. Let me reject everything in this realm and let me say everything in this realm is okay. But there's a different choice. We don't have to have a point of view about every energy. We don't have to try to reject. And it's in our rejection that we reject the receiving that also allows money. We don't have to reject any of it. And how many gurus have said, just be? Well, which is great if you have 30 years in a cave to meditate, but most of us don't. This is like the fast track, you know? Get your bars on, use some damn tools, and then be. Like let's be, because that was one of the things that always used to frustrate me is I don't have 30 years to meditate. I got a life to create. I got bills to pay. Nobody's going to pay me to meditate for 30 years in a cave, damn it. But I know if I did, I would be so zen. Actually, there was a guy that came to Access who literally spent 15 years of his life going to ashrams and going to caves and going anywhere spiritual they would have him and meditating. And he was like, it was the most amazing thing. I would go on a 10-day meditation, a 10-day silent retreat. And by like day 7, it was like the most glorious thing ever. And then I would come back to my life and it was even worse because I didn't have the tools. And the fundamental tool that we have is the tool of choice. And we can choose to be bombarded by all this crap and try to figure it out and function on our computer generated mental autopilot. Or we can go, wait a minute. I'm making all of this greater than me. It's felt like that my whole life. I'm done being less than all of this. As of today, I am choosing to have my own back and my own front and choose something different. I'm going to choose something that actually works for me, something that actually makes me lighter. And a great place to start would be, as you might know, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. Okay, 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening, 100 times a day, at least preferably. But also, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, there are all these points of view all the way around. And an interesting point of view, this person that I'm making significant, and this one has it. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, there are all these points of view, and all these people have this point of view. Interesting point of view, I have all these points of view about all of these points of view. See, if you unplug from the matrix has no one feeding it anymore. That sounds significant to call it that, but it is like a matrix of thoughts, feelings, emotions, and judgment. But look at this for a moment also. If you're going to change your money situation, you're going to have to increase your no point of view, increase your willingness to receive. But you're also going to have to start seeing yourself as more of a gift than you have been willing to know that you are and that you be.
I'm gonna attempt something. I know we have another 10 minutes or so before we close, but then on a call, I think that you did a couple of weeks ago with the facilitators from India, you spoke about the land, potency, capacity, and magic. I'm not sure if this is the platform for that conversation, but I am very curious to know if you have something to add about this specific topic, because the moment you changed the topic or the name of the class literally overnight, and it's in India, is there anything you want to say about that to us?
Well, it was interesting because last year when I was in India, I was doing a Symphony of Possibilities class, which is a quote unquote an advanced class, quote unquote, that has other prerequisites so that we're all starting off on a similar page and can go to universes from there. And one of the things that showed up was this awareness of the animating consciousness of India itself, the land. But not only the land, all the nature spirits, all of the all of the things that are unseen that can be perceived that would contribute to anybody willing to ask and receive. And it brought me to tears. And for many months after, I tapped into that, but I also started asking for the animating consciousness of the entire earth to wake up, to contribute. And when you talk about, here's the other interesting part about India for me is the magic that is there still. Okay. It is, and I know it's like, I know somewhere you guys know it. And yet I know also that you've lived in a world in which all of these different structures from societal to male and female to this and this and this, those are all structures that have created a right and wrong universe that you're supposed to fit into with your choices. And anytime you're doing right or wrong, you're diminishing the receiving that's available. And so, because the first few times I went to India, I had this very strange energy where I was looking for the magic, but all I could see were people and their judgments. And the people in class, I would see these beautiful people who have magic, who would start to open up to it, and then they would believe that that couldn't exist. It couldn't be that easy. So they should go back to their structure of judgment. And interestingly, I saw it also start to break apart. Those that were willing to have something different, it started to create a place where they had access to their magic again. And magic for me is really practical. Magic is being able to access anything, any energy, any contribution to do what will actually work to create something greater. So magic is doing what works, but the willingness to receive that from even non-cognitive sources. And so in tapping into, like, how many of you know that India is a magical land? And how many of you, in an effort to try to, how many of you have seen it in the way of it's a magical land and you know it should be, so your knowing is there about that? Well, simultaneously, you see what people have done, because that's what people do. If you just let people run free, they become very peoply and they rely on their structures of judgment, et cetera. But also, so how many of you have been disappointed? How many of you have been dejected? How many of you have been depressed? Because you know it should be one thing, you know it, you know it, you know it. And then you're like, where the flock is it? Right? Well, that's what starts opening up in the being you, changing the world class. And there's all kinds of ways of opening up to the magic that you are. But one of my favorites is more consciousness. That's actually where your magic lives, is getting more conscious. What is getting more conscious? Getting less judgment, choosing to judge less. Because less judgment doesn't happen to you. Actually, it does, but it doesn't in the sense of, because this judgment structure that we've all learned, this matter, energy, space, time conglomerated reality that we've all been living with as though it's the only choice, speaks very loudly and will try to pull you back into it at every moment. You don't have to buy it. So our choice to not judge gives us a different sense of possibility. It gives us the willingness to receive from all sources of contribution, to create whatever we would like to ask for, even if that ask is beyond the box. And that's magic. Okay, the ability to do what works, to create not just what is, but what can be. That's magic. And guess what? Why do you think India has so many gods and so many miraculous stories and so many? Because it's a magical land and it has been very peopled, but you don't have to buy into the people because the magic is still there. And so are the nature spirits. And so are the magical, mystical creatures of which you are one when you truly be you. And everything that doesn't allow you to know it, right and wrong, good and bad, POD and POC, all 100, shorts, boys, POVADs, bases, creations, and beyond. And if you don't know what that is, that's called magic. That's the clearing statement. And it will help you access your magic and help you change your stupidity and your unkindness to yourself. So you start liking you. And when you like you more, you start changing not only your money situation, but at a certain point, that becomes far less relevant than your liking you and being the magic and creating miracles and navigating your life in a way that nobody else can understand, but everybody wants to know.
Whoa. Yeah.
Whoa. Aren't you glad you
Whoa.
asked?
Wow. Dane, before, I mean, this has been like a class. Before we let you go, I mean, there's so many things I want to ask you, but before we let you go, is there anything else you want to kind of? I'm super excited for this, like this one specifically, 8th, 9th, and 10th of, I'm forgetting months, May in New Delhi. Yay!
Mhm.
May in New Delhi does not have any prerequisites. Is there anything you'd like to share, maybe about the class or in like what's this gonna, what's like, wow, no
See,
words.
no, notice the thing that we're that in that question, and I have done this so many times. In that question, we're trying to define for somebody so they can see what we're really trying to do is show people the gift and the value of it. And anytime we try to define it, we're diminishing it. And so if you don't get from this particular Zoom or this particular live the energy of what this class is about, and other than attending the class and reading the Being You book, there ain't much else I can say. Or you could check out my other thousands of videos on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and see if any of that resonates with you. But it's like here's the way to make the choice. Not, oh, my judgment system says it's right and good, but if I choose this, what will my life be like in 5 years? And if I don't, what will my life be like in 5 years? If I choose this, will my life go like this or will it go like this? And if I don't, will my life go like this or will it go like this or will it just keep going along like this? Like if you choose to come and you can do it online, you can do it. I know people who do it online from the exact opposite time zone around the world. You know, they start at like 9 at night or they start at 2 in the morning. And it's so wonderful to me because these people are like, we're having a pajama party. This is the greatest adventure we've had this year. It's gonna be the most amazing thing in the world. And then I know other people like, oh, I'm sorry, it's in another city in India. Yeah, no, I couldn't quite be bothered. And see, most people would judge that. I look at that and I'm mildly entertained because it's not really about what it looks like. It's about them not being willing to go here yet. And that is totally okay. You should always have that choice. So for me, people like define it, tell me what you're going to get. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm like, just ask, what will my life be like in 5 years if I do this? And if I don't, because the whole beauty of this is it's not friggin' logical because logical is judgment. And we try to use logic. We don't use logic to create our lives. We don't use logic and judgment to create our lives. We use logic and judgment to control our lives. And is this maybe an invitation to get out of logic and judgment as a primary source of controlling your life as though it was creating your life because it never was creating your life? How do I know? Ask me how I know. Dr. Dain Heer, 26 years ago. Unhappy, suicidal. Dr. Dain Heer was not very much fun to be around for Dr. Dain Heer especially. I thought if I became a doctor, I didn't become a doctor for other people's accolades. I became a doctor, number one, because I wanted to contribute miracles to people. And I thought if I were a doctor, people would receive it. And I realized that I was totally delusional in what I thought it was supposed to create. But I'm glad I did it because it gave me a dynamic experience of so many things, and I've been exposed to so many miracles as a result of it. But I realized that this huge area of the way I thought things would function, it didn't, it didn't do that at all. And it started me on the path of what would really work to create what's possible. And so this whole class, entire everything we do with Access is pragmatic. It's not hopeful spirituality. It is pragmatic consciousness. And once again, consciousness includes everything and everyone and everything and everyone and everything and everyone without judgment. And that is where we are headed. And that is the explosion that occurs in your world. If you want an atom bomb of that up your cute little booty or in your reality, that is more what the Being You class creates.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Dane. Like, this has been incredible. You've been incredible with everything that you've just invited us to over the last very many years. And we are really looking forward. India can't wait. New Delhi, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And we can't wait to see you in person. Yay.
I look forward to it. Thank you. And here's the other thing about this is what if we're just getting started? Okay.
Mhm.
I know I am. What if you look at what you've been able to create and change in the last 10 years? And what if we change more than that in the next 3 days or 3 months? So let's play. Let's have way more fun than we're supposed to. Let's have way more money than we're supposed to. Let's have way less judgment than we're supposed to. And let's go kick the world's ass into a different possibility for future. Thank you, my friend. And thank you all for joining us.
And thank you.